Why, hello there, Dale.
Hi, Destin.
How are you?
It's actually been a little bit busy.
Oh, wrapping up the end of the Senate session?
Wrapping up, the Senate's still going, MPs have gone home.
Okay.
Senators are still plugging away.
Plugging away. How much longer do they have at it?
Possibly by midnight tonight,
Okay.
likely by tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be gone.
And then they'll be gone. So let's do a bit of a year in review then, shall we? Well, first of all, let's talk about what the Senate's wrapping up on.
Right.
Obviously, the omnibus bill, they've...
Yeah, they're finishing that, or their third reading debate on that today.
Okay, perfect.
They also they had a deadline set on the refugee reform bill, which got royal assent earlier today.
Okay.
Because the government didn't want to have to implement last year's refugee bill, which they passed, because that would have had to be implemented as of Canada Day this year.
Okay.
And in order to head off all those changes that they decided they didn't want because there was too many compromises with opposition parties, they had to race this one through to beat that deadline.
Okay.
And also the bill on copyright reform.
Okay.
They wouldn't get that passed before the summer because that's one of the big blocks or stumbling blocks with this Trans-Pacific partnership that they're trying to negotiate with.
Okay. We can't mention the Senate without talking about Senator Patrick Brazeau.
Yes, who has been conspicuously absent for the rest of this week.
Well, I mean, as he was for the majority of the year, apparently.
He was.
But
and
I shouldn't say that for fear that I'd be called a bitch.
Yes, well, it's actually been kind of interesting to see that in light of this incident, how much of his previous misconduct is coming to air once again in terms of harassment and so on at his former workplace.
Well, and what I find interesting about the story, and I think what's interesting about him is his age, right? He's the youngest sitting senator.
Right.
And anytime there's a debate about decorum in the House of Commons, there always seems, not just the House of Commons, but in the Senate, parliamentarians as a whole, everyone on the Hill in general, there seems to be the idea that, hopefully the younger generation will not deteriorate to the antics of what we currently see.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. The hope is lost for the future, shall we say.
Yes, unfortunately, age is no barrier to partisanship.
Well, nor is it to good manners, really.
No.
So, that said, I think that leads us into our winners and losers.
Oh, does it?
Yes, it does. So, I mean, let's talk about... Let's start with the good news first, shall we?
Okay.
Let's talk about the winners from the spring session.
All right.
Do you have any winners from the spring session?
Yes.
Who?
Yes.
Multiple. One.
The one that stands out in particular is Michelle Rempel, who is the parliamentary secretary for the Minister of the Environment.
Yep.
She is probably the rookie that has impressed me the most from this past year. She's one who knows how to really learn her file. She doesn't rely on notes. She rejects the talking points that PMO sends down. Does it all herself, and she's a really solid performer in the House. Better than I would say 90% of her colleagues.
So you're saying that she has a bright future then?
She has a bright future. Her biggest handicap to getting into cabinet, of course, is the fact that she's from Calgary, and the cabinet is already pretty cabinet heavy, and in order to have enough geographic representation of the country, that makes it more difficult to see her getting a permanent cabinet post anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay. I think that's a pretty savvy pick on your part. Any other winners, or is she the one stunning example?
She's the one stunning example that I think really kind of stood out this past year.
What about losers? Any losers from the spring session?
Oh.
And I'm going to limit your response to just 3 max, because I know there's been quite a few across your list this session.
Well, the obvious one, of course, is Bev Oda. It's pretty much, the $16 orange juice thing has poisoned her amongst the Conservative base. And I've heard this from Conservative MPs where, they're all saying, their constituents are writing to them going, $16 orange juice. I could feed an army of children for $16 orange juice. True story. And that's kind of made it untenable for her to remain in cabinet. But interesting thing, she may get a soft landing.
Well, I would say she's had a career full of soft landings. Has she not?
Yes. Interesting thing that happened this week.
What is it?
Liberal Senator Vivian Poy announced that she will be retiring about 4 years early.
Mm-hmm.
She is an Ontario senator.
Hmm.
Bev Oda is an Ontario MP.
Mm-hmm.
That might make for a very nice little soft landing where Harper can stick her without too much disgrace.
Well, disgrace for herself, but I think that might cause some controversy amongst the public.
It might, but I think that's one that the calculation would be that it would blow over shortly enough.
Okay, any other losers then?
I'm going to say Charlie Angus.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Well, aside from his little outburst over how horrible Twitter is,
Mm-hmm.
Apparently it makes us all 14-year-old girls. The NDP's made this big deal about, decorum. We're going to be the party of decorum. And every single day, Charlie Angus stands up and calls cabinet ministers names.
So he wins the Hypocrite of the Year award.
Pretty much.
Oh, okay.
And not only that, but he has this habit of turning to the back benches to deliver his funny lines, like playing to his audience just a little too much, which is also bad because it turns away from the microphone, so it takes away from the sound. But it's one of those things that, it's not really clever, it's not really funny, and if you're going to go on the high horse of decorum, don't do it.
Okay. If we're mentioning $16 orange juice, shouldn't we talk about private helicopter rides and rides on military jets in terms of losers of the spring session? Why is Bev Oda on your list and Peter MacKay not?
Because I don't think that Peter MacKay has gotten the same backlash from the base as Bev Oda has.
However, wherever there's trouble, he seems to be there.
He does. I mean, you could say the same thing with Christian Paradis. I mean, he seems to have a permanent, ongoing investigation at the Ethics Commissioner's office. Unfortunately, like with Paradis' case, there's not a lot of talent pool for Harper to draw from to maintain enough Quebec cabinet ministers, so he's probably insulated. He might get demoted to something or other. Peter MacKay might get shuffled out of defense. I've heard rumors that they may stick him in justice, because he is a lawyer. But I don't think he's going to be ousted in the same way that Bev Oda pretty much needs to be at this point.
So what are the summer rumors on a cabinet shuffle? I guess this summer they're going to be thinking about it and that'll be released as the fall session starts.
Right. It's likely going to be fairly minimal.
Okay.
I'm also guessing Julian Fantino is going to be shuffled out because his associate deputy minister position has been pretty much been made redundant by this new procurement secretariat that they've launched within Public Works.
Okay.
And Ron Ambrose has basically taken over that file. So they may give him some other token file. And actually, come to think of it, if Bev Oda's out of international development, that could be something for either, say, Chris Alexander to move into, or maybe even MacKay, being as there was such a heavy development portion of the Afghanistan file.
Okay. Well,
and he was Foreign Affairs Minister at one point as well.
That's right, and it would seem to be I don't know if natural progression is the word, but there would seem to be a comfortable fit there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been an eventful session.
It has.
So there's only about a few hours, 12 hours or so left. So I'm going to wish you a good summer. We will be weighing in over the summer should anyone do anything really exciting or really stupid. As we always do.
Never rule that one out.
Never rule that one out. The summer is long and plenty of opportunities exist with Twitter and everything for stupidity to happen. So that said, until September, dear friend.
Until September, if not sooner.
If not sooner.